withstand the heat and pressure of launch. Two Swiss, Schmidt and Rubin, invented the jacketed bullet. A jacketed bullet is nothing more than a gilding metal envelope surrounding a lead core. The lead gives the bullet weight, while the jacket gives strength and keeps the lead from touching the bore. The same two individuals eliminated the rim on the cartridge case. Since the extractor worked on the rim, Schmidt and Rubin put an extractor groove in the base of the case. The rimless cartridge was born. The box magazine, where cartridges are stacked one on top of the other, was now practical. By 1893, Mauser had perfected the double-column box magazine. In order to load this magazine rapidly, Mauser used the stripper clip. This clip holds 5 rounds and is inserted into the weapon from above. The rounds are then pushed into the magazine and the stripper clip discarded. Without going into the history of specific weapons, the industrialized nations of the world all had magazine-fed bolt-action rifles of one sort or another by the 1890s. Like this pattern 17 Enfield, they were simple yet robust. The firer grasped the bolt handle and lifted it, thereby unlocking the bolt. He drew the handle to the rear, thereby extracting the cartridge case in the chamber and, at the rear of bolt movement, ejecting it out of the weapon. Forward motion of the bolt would then pick up the top round in the magazine, driving it forward into the chamber. Downward motion locked the bolt and the weapon was ready to fire. On the chart, the difference between the single-shot black powder breech loader and the bolt-action magazine rifle is obvious. Initially, the increase in combat range was roughly double. But by the turn of the century, man became better educated as to aerodynamics, and the bullets changed from heavy round nose, as you see here, to the lighter, higher velocity Spitzer bullets, which were also very aerodynamically efficient. The jacketed Spitzer bullet, combined with smokeless powder, results in the total difference, a tripling of the combat range. With clip loading, the bolt-action magazine rifle has double the volume of fire. The increase in combat range due to smokeless powder and jacketed Spitzer bullets is extremely important. I have 2 sets of targets as an illustration. They were fired with a black powder single shot labeled 4570 and a bolt-action magazine rifle labeled 3006. Both rifles were adjusted for their battle sight ranges. From that point, each rifle was fired at 100 yards and at 330 yards, aiming in all cases between the breast pockets of the enemy. You can see that both rifles did well at 100 yards. At 330 yards, the 30-06 was still at battle sight, while the bullets from the 4570 had fallen 8 feet below the target. With the new weapons, the shooter could be more deadly at longer ranges. At 350 yards or less, he no longer adjusted sight. He simply fired battle sight at the highest rate that he could manipulate his weapon. The volume of fire was now high enough so men no longer need stand shoulder to shoulder. They could be spread out in skirmish line and still generate sufficient volume of fire to stop any sort of mass charge. All of this happened well within the career length of an officer of the day. It frequently occurred that lieutenants who gained their experience with single-shot black powder breech loaders would go off to staff and, after numerous promotions, come back to command units equipped with weapons far beyond anything they had ever dreamed of. Do you remember the photo of Spion Kop? After seizing the hill in a night attack, these soldiers dug a firing trench in a defense against close assault. They died where they dug as the Boers enfiladed the trench from another hill over 1,000 yards away. This is the result of not understanding new weapons and ammunition. Kipling wrote about Boer marksmanship in his poem, Pete. And when there was aught to do but camp and cattle guards, I fought with him the whole day through at 1,500 yards. Long afternoons of lying still and hearing as you lay, the bullets swish from hill to hill like sighs among the hay. The British Army did learn from the Boer War. Marksmanship became the primary soldierly skill in their army from 1902 to 1914. This would later serve them well at Mons and Le Cateau in World War I. Smokeless powder and jacketed bullets also made the machine gun a practical reality. By 1893, the first really usable models were in action. By 1914, every major nation in the world had a machine gun of similar capabilities. Without getting into design history, I'll use this Browning water-cooled as a representative example. It feeds from a cloth belt. As each cartridge fires, the recoil energy cycles the weapon. This pulls the belt into the gun. Pulls the next cartridge from the belt and feeds it into the chamber. This continues as long as the trigger is depressed. The barrel is surrounded by a water jacket holding approximately 5 quarts of water. During continuous fire, the water is brought to a boil and steam exits through a valve down this hose into a condenser bucket. The second assistant gunner keeps refilling the water jacket. All of these weapons were extremely accurate. They were also chambered for the full-powered rifle cartridge of the nations involved, such as 30-06 or 8mm Mauser. In the first target run, you'll see a silhouette target on the top of a 4-inch by 4-inch fence post and 2 real sly fellows hiding behind a cinder block wall. That's pretty impressive. The Browning fired such a small group that it had no problem cutting down the post. both the wall and the two guys behind it took a severe drubbing. Next, we'll engage a group of targets in the open and a final assault of targets online. The advantages of the water-cooled machine gun are obvious. It is extremely accurate and has a very high sustained volume of fire. In fact, the water-cooled machine gun is unique among machine guns in that its sustained volume of fire is just about the same as the rate at which the mechanism cycles. They had usable volumes of fire on the order of 500 rounds per minute and maximum ranges in excess of 2,000 yards. This tremendous capability is not free. For starters, the weapons are difficult and expensive to manufacture. The crews for the weapons had to be large and highly trained. The water-cooled machine gun weighed well over 100 pounds and took at least 3 men to carry it. This does not count water, ammunition, and other gear. It also took a long period of time to get the weapon properly placed in position. You should have noted that we had 11 sandbags stacked on the Browning when we fired it. The extra weight of the sandbags helped damp out the vibrations of recoil and was a requirement if one was to take advantage of both its accuracy and high sustained volume of fire. Further, someone had to load the cloth belts with ammunition. This required a separate machine such as this Browning cloth belt loader. I could get into more detail on advantages and disadvantages, but you get the point. The bolt-action rifle and the water-cooled machine gun were the weapons of World War I. Coupled with the new breed of artillery, they caused trench warfare. The stagnation of trench warfare in turn benefited the water-cooled, for there was no requirement for mobility. No man's land truly was a place where no man could live. Developments did not stop in 1914. In an attempt to break the trench deadlock, the Germans tried a lighter water-cooled, the 08-15 Maxim. This was coupled with a new concept, the submachine gun, wherein pistol cartridges were fired on full automatic from a shoulder-fired weapon. In exchange for a decrease in range to 150 yards, the German got a 5-fold increase in volume of fire. These weapons were combined in his storm tactic